It's Tuesday, the 7th of January 2025. And in this evening's show, we run the rule over Saturday's 5.28 league leaders, Wycombe with Blackpool for once on the right side of a last-minute goal to send us home with a last-minute point against the 10-man Chairboys. We'll also give our thoughts on the rumours that Simon Sadler has put the club up for sale and the implications of this seismic news. And I'm John Aspinall. This is Seaside's podcast, match reaction show. Wycombe Wanderers 1, Blackpool 1. Someone else do the intros. I fixed my audio. 2 secs.
And tonight we're on our 1 hour special where Tim's going to shut up after 10 minutes and Nick's going to carry it on. Nick is going to call the shots on what time we finish tonight.
Well, it's only because I say every week, right, let's keep it to an hour. And inevitably, we don't do. So we will see how we go. There's not much to talk about, is there? Let's be honest. Quick match review. Nothing really going on off the field. So it shouldn't be a problem to stick to 60 minutes.
How's the audio now, guys?
A lot better.
Tried a different channel. This was a lot of interference from there. Right, yeah. Apologies, listeners. We are coming a day late. We did say we're doing Mondays at 8 from now on, but Virgin Media and Richard Branston had different ideas yesterday. Myself, Nick and Tim were all on Virgin broadband and that was all down, so we had no chance of doing it. And also, when I did set the show up, I set the wrong date and it showed initially as Sunday, so there was a few people hanging around then. So apologies everyone. We are here now on a Tuesday. Plenty to talk about this evening, gents. Obviously Tim, Andy and Nick in the studio. First thing up on the agenda is Wycombe Wanderers 1, Blackpool 1. Nick, 3 tough games for Blackpool, one after the other. We've come out, although not as many points as we'd want. We've put in great performance, but commendable performances in all 3 games, and Wycombe's culminated in a point, a much deserved point in the end, despite not doing a lot in that final second half.
Yeah, I think, but for a very questionable refereeing decision at Wrexham, we would have come out of all 3 of those games unbeaten, which there's no shame in that at all when you look at certainly the money that Birmingham and Wrexham have spent, and to go to Wycombe, it's not easy. They've stayed up there on merit. I kept thinking they were going to drop off at some point, but they haven't done as yet. And like you say, although it wasn't a vintage performance by any stretch of the imagination, we kept going and managed to get the point in the end.
Okay, let's get the not the player ratings. Which one is it? That's the one. Done the wrong ones. Starting 11. Imagine that says starting 11 on the screen. Tim, remember on the preview show we replaced Pennington with a fire in the middle and we put Gabriel on the right hand side. He didn't listen to us. Should have. Pennington gave the pen away. A fire was involved as well. We got a bit of stick on Twitter, X, for that. But the lineup was Tyra, Husband Casey, Pennington, a fire, Morgan and Evans in the middle, Apter on the right, Carey on the left, Fletcher and Joseph up top. Any issues with that?
I think, obviously we were looking at trying to create a slightly more attacking-based side to have a go at them, weren't we? But I can't say I was really surprised by the back 4 appearing as it was. If you actually go back through probably the last 10 games, we've actually defensively generally done pretty well, aren't we? And sometimes it's a case of you don't reinvent the wheel, I think, when things are going reasonably well defensively. So, yeah, whilst we had our little bit of fun with what will be our team, no surprises from my perspective, really. I think it's when you start moving a little bit further forward, persevering with Carey in the left left wing position was perhaps a little surprising to me. I thought there was a better shout for Coulson to play there. And again, I'm not surprised he stuck with Fletcher. I think we had a debate, didn't we? You know, we were debating whether, you know, Fletcher is starting to score a few goals. And again, I'm not surprised. You know, as Nick alluded to, we've probably not got the points we deserved out of these three sort of stellar away games of playing the top three. I think arguably we would have had 2 or 3 more points with a little bit of a rub of the green. So, you know, this team's not done bad for Bruce, and I can imagine him being the type of manager who, if players are performing for him, he's not going to change it for change's sake. So, overall, not too surprised. Carey would be my one that I would have a question mark over.
Grice Reaper, any thoughts or anything to add on what Tim's just said?
I think once we knew Ballard had gone back. I don't think there's any doubt that Fletcher was going to play. I just, again, we go to Carey for me. He just doesn't know that position, and it's wholly obvious he doesn't know that position. As I said in the last pod, I can understand why Bruce is trying to play him, that he can come in off the right and get some shots off, but he probably, saying that, takes his chances. He proves everyone wrong, doesn't he? But he didn't, so there you go. But it's just his positional on that left-hand side doesn't seem to work. So I think we look a lot better when CJ's on the pitch. But whether he just didn't want to play CJ a full game until he's had another week's training, maybe. I think that was probably something to do with it.
Is there an argument? I was just thinking this, looking at the formations, to mix it up a bit with these formations. I personally like to see Apter playing as a 10. You could be looking at a 4-2-3-1 formation, maybe get the best out of the players, given the fact, you know, we're a bit short on out-and-out wingers.
I think, yeah, it's a valid point, but at the same time, I don't think he's going to do it. You know, I totally get what Grice is saying with Carey there in that position, but I think he's probably the 5th or 6th player who he's played in that position, and there's only really CJ who's the out and out winger and who it suits. I think whoever else plays there, inevitably, they don't do great, but have a degree of sympathy because they're playing out of position. And you know, as we'll come to talk on later about departures, with you know, sort of Ballard's played out wide, Embleton as well, again, who isn't a winger, and who knows if he was playing in the 3 week in, week out, we might have seen a little bit more of him. But he's sort of rigidly sticking to this 4-4-2, and you know, we're in January, so we will see. I expect that we'll well, I would hope we're signing at least one out and out winger, because we can't just rely on CJ and or square pegs in round holes, because inevitably it doesn't work, you know, because you're just playing people out of position.
So is it the curse of the left wing filling that Embleton plays there and goes, Ballard plays there and goes, Carey, watch his space.
Was there a cryptic Instagram post?
That's what I was sort of half getting at.
Right, yeah.
And then I'd be looking over my shoulder if I was Coulson as well. And then, of course, in the other games, we've had the perennial Ballon d'Or specialist Dom Thompson at various times down that left-hand side as well. So we haven't seen him, apart from, I don't think we'll see him again after that aberration in the cup game. Bruce didn't look pleased. So, and that left-hand side is a problem, and we all known that, and we all know we need another wide player in the window. So, I think it's nothing that we haven't known for a long time, and Bruce probably hasn't, has known for a long time.
Tim, just before we move on to the game, then I've heard what everyone's said there about this 4-4-2 rigid formation. We're now looking at the table. We're 11 points off the last playoff spot. Is it a bit foolhardy just sticking with the 4-4-2 all the time when you've got your players to play the way you want to play? Do you think you should have been mixing it up a bit? Because, unless we have an amazing run, we ain't making the playoffs now.
No. Well, I think the one thing you might say is that if he intends to play 4-4-2 the rest of the season and he has irons in the fire to get 2 or 3, 4 players in who will actually suit the system, then mixing it up and sort of confusing the style of play he wants to play in the short term, in the hope that it turns something up, might be something he doesn't want to get involved in. He might think, well, I've got 6 or 7 of this team who are going to be starting week in, week out, and I want them to get used to the way I want them to play. So there could be that thought process. The other thought process is he's just showing a bit of Critchley style stubbornness in sticking to a system that doesn't suit the players. But I sort of get why he's doing it, but I think we keep saying it's just this left wing spot is a huge problem, and I think we're also overplaying Apter. I think Apter's probably playing a few more games than ideally he would do in his first season in League One. I think he would be, maybe play every other game. But yeah, we're relying on him. I think he's probably played 25, 26 games, including cup matches this season. I think he's played virtually every game, hasn't he? So he's a young lad. I'm sure he can do it. But from his development perspective, he would probably have somebody to bounce ideas off and learn from. But equally, he's getting game time. But I think on balance, I would say I understand why he's sticking with it.
Do you agree with it, though?
I don't necessarily agree with it. I think there has been some opportunities where we could have mixed it up a bit, but I think he's been a bit unlucky with some of these away. Home form is a completely different discussion. But
it's been awful, Tim, hasn't it? It's been terrible.
The away fixtures have been actually, ironically, it's like chalk and cheese with last season, isn't it? Because the away fixtures were dreadful for the most part last season. Where this year, actually, even if we haven't won the game, as long as you can see it, which I didn't see much of at Wrexham, but when you watch the game back, where you can see it a little bit better, we played pretty well at Wrexham, we played very well at Birmingham, and I thought we acquitted ourselves reasonably well against Wycombe as well. So, and they are at the moment the 3 form teams. So you've got to say the system sort of works. It's just got. It's got a few little creases that need ironing out.
Well, it works away from home. It works away from home.
Certainly works away from home.
Does not work at home.
No. Well, and there's the obvious explanation for that is that when we're away, teams are going to come on at us a bit more, and it allows us to play quickly on the break, and generally we can do that reasonably well. What we can't do is break teams down when they park the bus.
Do you think though? I mean, like we didn't do bad playing 4-3-3 when with Holloway, did we? Right, and if you take that, but a lot of balls from midfield were getting threaded between the fullback and the centre half, and the winger used to take the ball on the angle, cutting in towards the goal, and that sort of thing worked. But also, if you played Apter in the 10, you'd be surely reliant on Evans or Morgan. If he was playing in front of them two, that one of them would have to run past him to create more forward players, because we'd have 2 wide players and 1 central. So Morgan or Evans would have to run past Apter and be the one going into the box late. But I'm not so sure that either of them players are that player. So it's players to suit the system, surely.
Interesting conversation, regardless. Right, okay, let's move on to the game then. Nick, come to you. Let's get the first half stats up. I've put in my notes. Lee Evans with another schoolboy square pass across his own defensive third, almost played in Kone, who fortunately fired wide. It's becoming, I'm not slagging off Lee Evans in any way, but this seems to be happening a hell of a lot with him, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Like you say, it seems to be something that's creeping into his game a bit, and it might just be because he's the one who has the ball a lot of the time. You know, you look at our stats, inevitably he's the one with most completed passes and whatever else you want to look at. So over the course of the game, I still think he'll have a positive influence and be sort of our playmaker, if you like, our quarterback. But yeah, it was really lax that, and we were lucky that he's fired it over the bar rather than hitting the back of the net, because it was an absolute gift. And it was pretty, I think up until the goal as well. Really, it was pretty even Stevens. Really, there wasn't a great deal in it, and it was more when we were making mistakes that gave Wycombe their chances.
Tim, Lee Evans obviously in the thick of defensive and attacking incidents. Not long after that, he's just fired wide, and the bloody ref got in his way. So I remember screaming at the telly, "Fuck out of his way!" And Evans was remonstrating a bit with the referee. But Lee Evans showing what an important player he is for Blackpool, really.
Yeah, I just sometimes just. I wish he'd get some of his shots on target. He seems to get them just off target a lot, doesn't he, when he has a go? And I think he's got the ability to contribute more to the goal tally than currently he's doing, because he is, his skill set is probably as good as we've got at our football club, isn't he? At the moment, he's the most skillful player, and I think particularly I'm probably thinking more free kicks and things like that, where I think he's got the ability to do better than he's currently doing, and we'll probably see it at some point. I'm sure we will. But I like watching him. Sometimes the criticism, which I think we've spoken about before, is that him and Morgan collectively sit a little bit too deep, particularly in home games. But I think their pairing works particularly well away. The games I've been to, it's always not as good watching it on the box, is it? When you're actually at the game and you see the way that the things that they do, Charlton and Huddersfield standing out, obviously, and again, more recently, Birmingham in particular. They're capable of mixing it with the best players in the division and showing what good players they are. So, great. He's probably just about the best signing I think we've had in the last 12 months, I would say, Evans.
Andy, Lee Evans involved yet again for the Wycombe opener. If you recall, he spooned the ball up to, I think it was a Fire. He did a bit of a duff backward header towards Tyra, and Pennington's absolutely cleaned the lad out, hasn't he? A litany of errors and one a goal of our own making, perhaps easily avoided.
I think when Evans does make these howlers, he'll hold his hand up, but if other people make howlers, he absolutely he's not shy in castigating them, for sure.
It was a hat trick of howlers, that goal, if you remember.
It was just horrendous. And
it's like the perfect hat trick, isn't it? You have the perfect howler. So like
it was, yeah.
Foot, right.
A shot, a dodgy header, and somebody who takes somebody out. It's like having the left foot, right foot header in it.
It was. Immediately it happened. The Fire's got his head in his shirt. He was mortified, poor bloke. But there was no complaints from Pennington, was there? It was a nailed on pen. And
Chizzy was going absolutely mental on the radio, saying it was never a pen. He was screaming like a schoolgirl. I was like, "What game are you watching?" It looked like an absolute nailed on pen to me, an assault.
It was a pen. That's end of. And the guy's smashed it down the middle, hasn't he? And Tyra's had a go at saving it and ended up diving out the way.
Tyra's done an O'Donnell.
Yeah. We're not the greatest. I think if I was Banksy, I'd have saving pens as a number one thing.
Did anyone feel any sense that Tyra was going to save it? I didn't. I was like, no chance. It's like at Wrexham as well. It's weird, isn't it? Some keepers you've got a good feeling about, but for with the current crop, it's like no chance.
And I'll go back to I asked Paul. There was an old goalkeeper called Paul Cooper, Ipswich keeper, and I think he played at Leicester as well. And I asked him when he ended his career. I said, "Did you have any sort of secret about it?" And he said, "No." And I'm sure he said something along the lines of, "If it's a right-footed kicker, I dive right, and if it's a left-footed kicker, I dive left, and I save more than I let in." So I think it was something down the lines of that conversation. So it just shows you even the goalkeepers with a really good record haven't necessarily got some great thing about it. But if you then listen to Foster when he saved that one that did Wrexham so well against Notts County, he said he could tell in the run-up where the guy was going to put it. So, listen, it is what it. We just need to be better at things like that, I think, or it'd be nice to be better at those things. But they should score from 12 yards, shouldn't
they? Nick, if you look at the first half stats to the graph on your right, we had a minuscule XG of 0.14, one shot on target. We didn't really do a lot offensively, did we, in that half?
No, we didn't. Again, there was kind of quite a lot. I found myself sort of shouting at the telly, turn quite a few times. We were getting the ball in the middle of the park, whether it was Carey or whoever else. I'm not singling him out, but there was opportunity. You just want to see someone drive with the ball through the middle of the park sometimes. And I think that's what was really lacking. And we ended up inevitably with, we'll turn back, we'll go back to the defender, we'll go out wide, they won't take the man on, it comes back inside. And it was almost a bit, dare I say it, Critchley-esque away performance at times, where you just want a little bit of somebody to do a little bit of something to try and have a go. Because I thought, other than that, like I say, it was fairly even. We've gifted them their best 2 chances of the half, rather than them actually creating them in that first half. So yeah, a little bit frustrating, really. And for me, it was a stonewaller. I looked at the replay, and there was a suggestion he might have just started to touch the ball, but he's cleaned the guy out. And a guy, I always think 2 things. One, if it was the other way around, we'd be absolutely screaming for it. And 2, look at the reaction of the players. If you look at the reaction of the players for the Wrexham decision and compare it to that, they just got up, and Pennington knew straight away, and the Fire knew, it was a stonewaller for me. So, yeah, it wasn't a great first half, but, as we'll come on to talk about, we hung on in there and got our just desserts in the end.
I just want to reiterate what you just said there, Nick, because unbelievable how many times Carey was dribbling back towards his own goal. I bet on the stats it shows he's dribbling the ball. He's brilliant. He was dribbling it back more than he was dribbling it forward, because he's taking the ball completely with his back to goal. And how many times I'm shouting at the telly, same as Nick there, going, take the ball on the half turn. Take the ball on the half turn and
try and get my players to do that, Gracie. It's hard. It's hard work to get them to do it sometimes. It's confidence. It's having the confidence to do it. It's obviously low on confidence. Tim, on to the second half. I've put in my notes there. Masters of our own downfall once again. They've had just a standard short corner routine. It's gone into the box early in the second half. Completely unmarked, no one around him, on the edge of the 6-yard box, and the lad somehow has fired wide. If that goes in, it's game over. So
yeah,
another easily preventable goal, and disappointing that we're defending like that.
Yeah, I mean, because I just watched it back before the pod started, and I couldn't believe how that's a bad miss, that wasn't it? It really was. And I actually had exactly that same thought. I was thinking, geez, just refreshing memory. I thought, geez, that got it. That would have been game over. Obviously as we no doubt we're going to come on to discuss, we get a lifeline shortly after that. But yeah, it's and then we've spoken, and I'd spoken earlier about how well the defence has done, but we should never have a situation where somebody's just stood and marked like that in that area. So whose man it was and who left him, that's probably something we'll never get to the bottom of. But somebody did, didn't they?
team I managed was on the end of a drubbing at the weekend, and it was. I watched that in the morning and then watched this in the afternoon. I was not in a good mood after that incident. But Andy, my my mood was lifted when I saw Wycombe getting a red card. I've put in my notes, harsh red on Hartridge. Almost a partridge play on words. Finally, a bit of luck for us with refs. It wasn't a yellow for me from what I saw at the time. It looked a bit soft. What's your views?
I just straight away said yellow.
Did you? Straight
away said yellow. And to me, that's a yellow card. So I can't. I can't have any sympathy with him, to be honest.
Why'd you get that, Gracie? Because our player comes in on the blind side of him. I don't think there was any intent whatsoever. I mean, I generally think if that was the other way around, I'd be well pissed off. I really would, because as a player and as a fan of the team, because I'd be thinking there's no way he intended to do that, and I think he was bemused. He looked bemused that it was Joseph, was it? If I remember rightly, Joseph who came in. Yeah. So Joseph comes in where he's not even looking at him, and he comes across him. He catches him, and it is a foul, but it's no way that he got sent off for that for me.
That's interesting.
If you've got your Keir Starmer hat on here, his own manager said it was 2 yellows.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think that's. I say it as I see it, and I thought it was incredibly harsh. Obviously, John does as well. So that was my assessment at the time. I only just quickly watched it back at the end there, and nothing changed my view on it based on that.
I have to concur. When it happened, I didn't. I mean, it's a foul, absolutely. But like you say, he's coming on the blind side, so it's not like he's slid in and he's slightly high, or he's a second late, or it's cynical. I did think it was a little bit harsh. I mean, you take it all day long, don't you? Because it's then given, like you said, John, it gives us a lifeline, and all of a sudden, with a couple of subs, we look a bit more attacking with a bit more intent. They're sitting back, and you start to think, could we get something here? And thankfully, we did in the end. So a little bit of luck, but you get that sometimes, don't you? And we've had.
We're due it, Nick, aren't we?
I was going to say, if you look over the course of the last few games, we were probably due a decision like that.
Absolutely. Nick, so obviously with the down to 10 men, we've had a lot of pressure. We've dominated the ball without really creating much. I thought I was a bit disappointed from the chances created. The XG tells the story there, 0.43 to their 0.62, which is quite poor considering we had an extra man.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we made changes, and they did as well, didn't they? Straight away, they've sacrificed an attacking player and put another defender on, and then it did become a little bit like a defence against attack exercise where they're all sat back. And it can be hard when it's like that, because you don't necessarily get space, certainly for your wider players. And, we had plenty of possession without really creating too much. And you do start to think, is it going to be one of those games where we don't get anything out of it? And I was kind of thinking that going into the, 90th, 92nd minute, when Joseph stretches his leg out and the ball loops into the net.
Can I have a 20-second rant?
I'll put a clock on it. Go.
Right. Keepers going down when a man's been sent off. Unbelievable how they've not dealt with it, and the need to deal with it. The lawmakers need to deal with that straight away.
It's happened before, hasn't it? I think it happened earlier in the season.
Every single game.
Yeah, I suppose we'd do it though, because it allows you to make that substitution, doesn't it? And yeah, it
is infuriating, Andy. You're right. It is infuriating. Do you remember that one in front of the North Stand when it was so obvious?
Well, all their bench pointed to it. I can't remember which game it was, but yeah, it's a fair point. Yeah, you know what's going to happen though, don't you?
I even saw it in a non-league game last week. I went to a non-league game. AFC Blackpool game, the opposition had a man sent off, and straight away the manager shouting at the goalie, "Get down, get down!" And like, how do the referees know it's going on, but they're powerless to do anything about it? So somehow they need to work out, the lawmakers, that this is not a thing that needs to go forward. End of rant.
Can I just say as well, just going back to where Nick was at, I did think in those closing stages that Apter really showed his pedigree. I thought he was the one who looked most likely to unlock the defence, and ultimately he was the conduit for the goal, wasn't he? It was him breaking down the right, puts a decent cross in. I think it flicked on to Joseph, and Joseph instinctively, I think, just stuck his foot out and found the back of the net. And I think we all thought the game had run away from us, didn't we? And that we were going to have a rather frustrating 2 defeats and a draw against these 3 teams. So at least, I think it was a deserved point in the end. But yeah, I thought Apter actually showed his class a bit in that closing stages, because some of the others were just going down into blind alleys, it seemed to me. And I think Carey had one decent. I think it was Carey had one decent shot into.
Morgan, actually, Tim.
Morgan, sorry, not Carey.
Carey had the header.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think we were all reasonably pleased at the end to come away with that, because it would have been nice to get a win, but realistically, we are playing top of the league, and they've lost a couple of players at the top of the league for a reason, aren't they? At this stage, because they're a good side.
They weren't that great though.
No, but they are good. They're a good team. Maybe we played better than we're giving our lads credit for. But at the end of the day, when you get to 23, 24, 25 games, if you're top of the league, you're a good side, aren't you? You might have had an off day against us, or we may well have just been pressed them and played a way that negated. They have lost a couple of players, haven't they? They've lost 2 of the best players on loan recalls, which probably had an impact. Well, I'm sure it had an impact.
It will do. Yeah.
Saying that they didn't deserve the win, John. Didn't deserve the win after their shenanigans at Bloomfield Road and the 2-2 draw, which they were absolutely. They played the game. With regard to taking the sting out the game all the time, they were on the diving on the floor. Anytime we were through, they threw themselves on the floor. They really didn't cover themselves. I didn't come out of that game. I generally come out of that game genuinely angry because of the way they housery of their tactics. But I suppose that they must have done that a few times this season to get where they've got to. So we've come out of 2 games against top of the league without getting beat by them.
Yeah, we've got to take those positives, haven't we? Right, let's do play ratings, because we've got. Can you hear me? I can hear myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got no other games to cover, so we've got time to do play ratings. Quickly around the room, then. Nick, you can start with Harry Tyra.
We didn't have loads to do. Obviously, there's the penalty. I would say 6.5 out of 10.
Not in the fielding rating.
No, Nick, no.
6 plus.
Thank you.
Apologies. How could I forget?
Is 6.5 6 plus, or is it just 6? Because we've not done this for so long.
I know.
The system's all gone to cock.
I'm just keeping in mind we're trying to stick to an hour, and I don't want to spend 25 minutes.
Well, get the FPRS
6.5.
Correct. Still got it wrong. Right, we'll move on. Andy, Jimmy Husband.
6.
Ollie
Casey, Tim. By far our best defender this season.
Oh yeah, I mean somebody said in the chat, haven't they? And I think we'd all endorse that. And he's we all knew we could do it, and it's just a pity our former manager had a very low opinion of him. I thought he had another great game. 8.
Paddington, Andy, dropped by us, maybe.
Nick.
Sorry, Nick. Paddington dropped by us. Maybe Steve Bruce should have listened.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he's given the penalty away, but didn't necessarily see the guy. And I think prior to that, he'd been, since he's come in, I think he's done reasonably well. And like Tim said, we've done a lot better defensively in the last few games. 6 again for me.
Fire, Andy. Not to his usual standards, perhaps.
Maybe not. No, I mean, but I just don't. He didn't do much wrong there, did he? He just one aberration, and let's be fair, we're giving all the back fours and the goalkeeper 6, and we've conceded 1 goal against the top of the league, and and it was a pen from just a simple mistake, really, or a hat trick of howlers, as we would call it before. So they haven't done much wrong, and there we are standing with them all on 6. And I think maybe we're being a bit harsh to them, really.
Well, I didn't give him 6. I gave him an 8.
Oh, sorry, no, about Casey. Sorry, apart from Casey. Yeah. Casey's a standout, isn't he? Every week at the minute.
Okay, left to right, Tim. You can have Sonny Carey.
Yeah, and I don't want to go over what we've spoken about. Wrong position for the player. I think somebody said in the comments he's had 98 games now, and if he wants to make it with Blackpool, if indeed he's going to stay with us, then he needs to hold down a position, and at the moment he's not doing it. But I do have sympathy with him out there. But I would say it's a 5.
If we could see the Carey that played Fleetwood away, when we played Fleetwood away in the 3-3 draw, if we could have the Carey that came on that second half and was absolutely electric, and 2 goals, looked $1 million. And if we could see that Carey, then we'd be all right. But I think we might have seen that once or twice.
I don't think you're going to see it in a 4-4-2. That's the thing.
Nick, Albie Morgan, he's impressed me all season. Albie Morgan, I think he was very good again.
Yeah, I thought he had a decent game. Again, it's just sometimes you just want maybe to drive forward a bit more, perhaps. But I will give him a 7.
Andy, Lee Evans involved in everything as usual.
Good and bad, yeah. Not really his best game. Didn't set up too much, but had it not been for the referee, he might have scored 1. 7.
Tim, Rob Apter, I think you've already waxed lyrical about his influence on the team, haven't you?
Yeah, I think credit where credit's due. He's still learning his trade, isn't he? And he's proving to be the player that we all thought he could be, and perhaps I think it probably did him good playing a full season away last year. I think I'm on 7+. I 8-. Don't think he was quite as good as Casey overall, but equally I thought. He was always involved and good to watch as well, which is, I think, it's an entertainment game at the end of the day, isn't it? And he's always, you're always not quite off your seat, but you're at least on the edge of the seat when he's got the ball, aren't you?
Yep. Nick, Ash Fletcher, what can you say? Give us a rating.
Not a lot, 5.
And finally, to wrap this up, Andy, Carl Joseph, industrious ever got us the pen.
I don't think he's ever less than a 7.
Sorry,
Joseph. I don't think Joseph's less than a 7 any time because of his work rate. So good. stuck between a 7+ and an 8, so 7+.
I think that's reasonable. Okay, let's go on to our featured topic, which is Sadler to sell Blackpool, ? I think the most appropriate member of the panel to discuss this is Mr. Tim Fielding, former director, interim director of Blackpool, non-executive interim director of Blackpool Football Club. Got it right. Got that grandioso title right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had the Financial Times. I think it was Sunday it first came out, wasn't it? That was on the online section. Mentioned that Simon was looking to sell, and that he'd spoken to a Henry Tay, who's I think he's I've got a little bit more to say about him, but I think he's based in Singapore or Malaysia, and that they'd had discussions about selling, and this sort of dovetailed a bit with a bit of a rumor that was floating around that there was some form of announcement going to be made on Monday, and I think that led to quite a few people adding 2 and 2 together and reaching 5. I think my immediate reaction was, when I saw Henry Tay's name mentioned, was, I don't believe it. And I say that because I've actually met him, and I think quite a few other people who on the pod here who have as well, because he did, if you remember, he did come over when the interim board were in place, and he was courting, for want of a better word, the various fans groups to try and get some form of support or understanding as to what he was seeking to achieve. And my assessment was he's very much, for whatever reason, keen to do something in Blackpool, but his focus seems to be more on non-football on the airport in particular. And I got the impression that he saw being involved in the football club or being involved in the purchase of the football club as being some form of in with the council that might get him, I don't know, I mean, this was just my impression, that it would get him some form of kudos or influence. And I mean, it does. I mean, the Oystons played on that for years, didn't they? So, but I didn't get the impression that he was a particular football man. I didn't get the impression that I wasn't convinced as how he was going to finance it. So when I saw his name mentioned, my immediate thoughts were it was a red herring. I think if somebody's going to buy the football club, it isn't going to be him. And if it is him, I would be. Listen, things might have changed in the last 5 years, but I would be a tad concerned. Let's put it that way, as to where that would be going. I don't really want me to go on, but obviously we then had all the shenanigans that we saw yesterday on AVFTT with our old friend artificial intelligence mocking up an announcement that purported to be from Henry Tay's company, confirming that he'd agreed to purchase the club for £17.2 million. And I think it appeared. I think Matt actually shared it in the podcast group, but it was going around all over the place. And when I first opened it, I thought, you think it's real, and then as the sort of it starts to sink in, you realise it's not. And once you realise it's not actually on any news outlet either, you know it's not. Because the first thing this thing would be everywhere. Once the BBC would be carrying it, Sky Sports would be carrying it, it would be straight on all those, and it wasn't. And then we have the sleuths start to get onto it, and it turns out that they confirm 100% it's been AI manufactured.
Tim, do you know who I reckon was behind it?
Go on.
Carl.
do you know?
It's his style, isn't it?
What surprised me was how little information you had to put in into that. I forgot what they called it now. It's like the instruction box, isn't it? Create me an announcement that says this, that, and the other. And there was 2.5. Somebody did basically replicated it, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did 2.5 lines of instruction, and it churns out this A4 side of paper that actually, when you first look at it, has an element of believability about it, and you tie that in with the fact that the Financial Times had reported on Henry Tay, and it was on the front page of the hard copy paper on Monday. So the best, if you're going to call it a wind up, the best wind ups have always got an element of believability about them, haven't they? To actually hook people in, and boy, did it hook people in, didn't it? Because it was all over Facebook and whatever. Before I give the other guys their observations, the only thing I would say is what is it trying to achieve? What was the, on the face of it, it's a laugh, but it's actually, I can imagine within the football club, it's incredibly disruptive. And I can imagine that Simon and other people, Julian, will not have been impressed. And whether people are concerned about that or not is a matter for them. But from the point of view of running a football club, you don't want to spend a day dealing with something like this. And I can't imagine it. I think we are a rather unique football club in many respects, aren't we? And I can't imagine there's many other football clubs in this country that have to deal with this type of nonsense. And it must, I can imagine it grates within the
corridors of power.
That was the word I was looking for, John, and it was eluding me. Yeah, the corridors of power. I think, if you've got stuff to be dealing with, and perhaps dealing with, the manager and transfers and its January window and yada, 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 and all the other stuff, you don't want to be spending the day fielding all sorts of calls from various news agencies and whatever, explaining that this is a prank on an internet forum that's taken on some life and had an element of believability about it that snowballed during the course of the day. So, I can imagine they will not have been impressed, and I get it. If somebody did that with my business, and I would be very pissed off. So,
I think it's unbelievable that Swansea Julian spent a day knocking it back because he only works one day a week. If you believe the Jungle Drums.
Nick, anything to add?
I'd echo what Tim said in the latter part there about that it's all unnecessary, and that they've probably had to spend most of yesterday probably batting off queries and questions on something that's, I think Bison said there, people are making stuff up. When there's little happening, nonsense is needed to fill the void. I think it's quite mischievous, and people might find it funny, but there's a serious element to it. There's been rumours for a while about possibly the club being up for sale. You look at what's going on with Simon with the court case. So you could understand if it was up for sale, why it would be up for sale. And I could also understand it from a point of view of, with all of the nonsense that goes on, because this isn't the only thing where, I know they've not put a statement out, but they've had to put statements out in recent months about stuff that's turned out to be completely untrue. You probably just think, can I be bothered? And it's a shame, really, because, people, I'm not saying everything's perfect at the club, far from it, but I also think there's an element of be careful what you wish for. There may be other good owners out there, and you can look at clubs who've been taken over, and you look at Wrexham at the moment and Birmingham. But there's also lots of examples of bad owners, and clubs who've gone from out the frying pan into the fire and then into another fire and back into a frying pan or whatever. So there's an element of be careful what you wish for. If Simon Sadler continues to be the owner of our football club, I won't be disappointed. It's not perfect, but again, it could be a lot worse. And I don't know. It's just there's always this element where it's like whether it was Ben Mansford and people didn't take to him or whoever it is at the moment, and it just seems to be a bit of a constant sometimes where there's this kind of war footing going on, and there's always something happening in the background. We say it's very rarely dull at Blackpool, and it isn't. But so much of this in the last couple of days is just like Tim said, 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5. And I think at the moment you'd want us to be concentrating on, the transfer window for one. You look at, we've lost, Dan Ballard's gone back, Elliot Embleton's gone. We need to shift players out to bring players in. And I think that's the type of stuff you want to be talking about rather than, or you're talking about, genuine news on a sale, if it is happening, rather than stuff that's just made up.
Well, the thing is that, Nick, I don't think listen, I don't know this, but I don't think it's completely made up because
there's an element. No, they wouldn't just get it from nowhere, would they?
Financial Times would report. They're not reporting.
We're talking more on the AI stuff.
But the announcement was obviously false. There's no two ways about it. It's a false statement. But as I said, there's a tinkling of truth in there, and Tay's been involved before. I think I don't know, but I suspect if you go to Marks and Smith's judgment, I think there was 4 people who bid, and one of them bid £1, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was him. Now, the last person who bid £1 for the football club ended up owning it for 30 odd years, and we regretted the large part of that, didn't we? So. That's not a great start if somebody's bidding £1. And it might not have been him because it doesn't say it's him, but it does say it's a Malaysian businessman. So, I've had this. The muckers were having a bit of a laugh a few weeks ago, saying I was heading a consortium, whether tongue in cheek or otherwise. And then I go on AVFT&T on Sunday, and the guy's been told that me and Brett were heading a consortium together, and
Brett Ormerod
and Brett Geraghty, and so it's like really. So it's and I don't know whether he said somebody told him it. I don't know who told him it. I don't know whether that person had been. But this is what these Chinese whispers go about, don't they? And that sometimes they're based on a grain of truth. I remember going back to that story, Nick, with your relative and who I spoke to, and all of a sudden he's interested in buying the club, and I'm involved, and it's just bonkers, isn't it?
Can I put a different perspective on it a little bit? Number one, I don't want to mention the club actually. First of all, without saying condolences to Harry Lyons, because what's happened in the last few days for him is not great, and our thoughts and prayers are with him because he's lost his mother in the last week. So condolences to all the family, Harry, from all of us on the podcast.
Yeah.
The thing from the club is they've not helped themselves in all of this, and there's an element of what you guys are saying there is feeling sorry for the club, and why are they Julian Winter and Simon Sadler and everyone having to turn their attention to things. And I get all that. I get what you're saying. However, the club have not helped themselves. We are where we were when Sadler took over. We've not progressed forward. We've gone forward and gone back. We had a load of goodwill when Critchlow was here the first time. There was a load of goodwill, and that all has spanned out. We're getting that back from the backing of the manager. I don't think there's many of us against Bruce now, and everyone I speak to is 100% behind Steve Bruce. So the playing side of it, the fans are behind the manager, right? What they're not behind is the absolute aberration they made with tickets, with the forum, with Sadler having a go at people, where he's supposed to garner that in. We're supposed to be as one. We will only succeed if we're all as one together. So the club have to come to us. They have to communicate better. They have to the fans to be on side with them. They have to want the community, want the town to be behind them, and we as Blackpool fans want that. We want the club to be ingrained in the town and like everyone to be behind it. And the club have alienated part of our fan base at the start of the season. And then Julian Winter does that stupid interview where he's trying to justify the season ticket prices and putting it up for children. And that's not right. Right? Then we come into the communication, the whole communication of it and whatever. And they've lost a bit of goodwill from the fans. They have to find a way of getting that back. It's not about slagging the fans off and doing whatever. It's about trying to find ways to get the fans all on side. And they've
doesn't
got
mean
to
people
do
should
that.
make stuff up, though, does it?
Eh?
Doesn't mean people should make stuff up, though, does it?
I'm not. Look, I'm not.
I think what Andy's saying is that there's a void, isn't there? There's a communication void. I mean, we haven't heard from Julian since that interview with Andy Bays, which was
a car crash.
Well, I think it was either late August or early September because it was around the time that I went on and I had a real go about the children's prices. It was the same time, and I don't think we've heard from Simon probably for nearly 12 months. So there is a void, and the problem is when there is a void, then it gets filled with nonsense, doesn't it? And I think so. I endorse some of what Andy says there because I do think there is a disconnect at the moment, and who's responsible for that disconnect is probably not a discussion for today, but it's just but there is one, and you feel it in the stadium. You feel it in, I think we mentioned on the last pod about seeing the pictures from when we went down to Fulham and all the people on the boats and all the laughter and fun and joyity that there was there, gaiety, whatever, and how loud the North was. And we've lost some of that, and we do need to find a way to get it back, and we do need to find a way to get everybody more engaged. Winning on the football pitch helps, of course, winning particularly at home, and playing attractive football, but it isn't just about all that. It is about, as Andy says, making the football club the heart of the community, and you've got to communicate. If you don't communicate, nobody's going to understand what the objectives are. I've got no idea what the objectives are this season, other than what I hear from Steve Bruce. So, and I'm consider myself pretty switched on and keeps there's plenty of people who need more communication from the club to draw them in. I don't need drawing in. I'm in. I've been in for 40 years, as most of you guys have as well. So Andy's right, but equally, doing what happened on Monday is counterproductive. And if anything, it's going to possibly push the owner and his CEO more into the shell than they already are, which isn't a good thing.
But where's the ambition even for this season, right? Who's going to come up with a plan that's going to get a game where we've got 13, 14, 15,000 in that ground? Right, apart from when we play Birmingham, we'll give them about 8,000 bleeding tickets, right? That's not like we let's have someone have the ambition and the heart and the determination, right, to say, how do I get this town behind this football club at least once get them kids in, right? £1 a kid or whatever, £1 a kid, or I don't care what it is, right? But someone show some heart and some determination, right, to get that ground full again and buzz in and the North Stand rocking and everyone out, and you go down the West and they're all clapping away. They're not singing probably, but they're all clapping away to the beat of what the North Stand are doing, right? The South Stand look after themselves because we're the real stand of the club, but there you go. And we've got Big Cole and Simon don't like him.
Right, so Andy, the club
show some gumption and some ambition and some community spirit. Do things within the community that really matter. That's what.
Right, so the club. Let's segue onto the nicely segues us onto the Cambridge preview. The club are doing things. Nick, the prices are coming down, aren't they, for this game? Yeah, we discussed it earlier. The Moretti Lounge and the Heineken Lounge are a tenner if you want to upgrade. However, if you try to book this online, it becomes £13.50 with all the bullshit little add-ons that they charge. So that's a bit of a damp squid. So I guess you've got to go down and buy it in person if you want to take advantage of that particular offer. And Tim, you mentioned previously the use of AI. I'll wager a bet that the club have been using AI with their rallying cry on email to get people to come to the Cambridge game. I'll put it on the screen there. This is an offer we've all been given. I'll read it out for the benefit of the audio. This is a fantastic opportunity to support the Seasiders at unbeatable prices! ! Don't miss out on these fantastic deals! ! Gives you the details of the game with a few little emojis. Let's pack out the stands and show Cambridge United about what Blackpool is all about. #UTMP. If that wasn't written by an AI agent, I'm a Preston North End supporter. But at least they're trying.
Well, yeah. It's not very inspiring, is it?
Don't miss out on these fantastic deals. That was the one that caught my eye. It sounds like you're buying a washing machine, not supporting a football club. It does hark back to supporting the product.
Mm-hmm. Sea Life Centre got a deal on Saturday as well, so we're competing with them.
I think about like Bison said in his comments, you know, if you're winning games of football, it makes it a lot easier when you're on the back of how long is it now at home? Since a home win. You know, it does make it more difficult, particularly to get your floating fans in, even at reduced prices. Because, like you say, it's 3 months or whatever it is since the last home win, unfortunately.
Moving on to the game then. Got a few stats out for you. We've scored 3 in our last 5. They've scored 2 in their last 5. Cambridge haven't kept a clean sheet in 11 matches, nor won a game in 7. However, we haven't won a game in 6. And given the fact we've not won since, as Nick said, in September, what are your score predictions for this game? It's going to be 0-0 or 1-1.
Well, I think that, you know, they could well come and, like we've seen on a couple of recent home games, out of possession, you know, sit with 10 men behind the ball, which could make it very difficult for us. If there's no width from us, we do struggle and end up sort of playing these floated balls into the box. They're
5.5. They're 5.5 to 1 to win, Nick, as well.
Yeah, I know Shane Lavery, who plays for them, but has picked up, you'll be surprised to know, a hamstring injury. So won't be playing. I think he scored 2 against us in
he did, yeah,
the reverse fixture, yeah.
Was that mental 4-4 game?
It was, yeah. It was the crazy 4-4 game, yeah. So it's going to be tough, particularly if we've not done any business in the transfer market in terms of incomings between now and then. So in terms of prediction, we've got to win at some point at home. So I'll be optimistic and say 1-0 header from a defender on a set piece.
Gricey, come out of your padded cell, as Bison's has just said, and give us a prediction.
I think the players are going to be determined to overturn this lack of home wins. Don't forget, we've still got this 4-match imbalance. So we've got 4 more home games to play than we have away.
Have we really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. 4 more home games than away games we've got.
Well, given our home record, that's not great news.
That's not an advantage now. We probably like it the other way around. Yeah. If we got Wrexham's home record, we'd be laughing it. We'd be like thinking we're going to win the league.
Right, this is the time. This is game where the ship finally changes course and turns around. The oil tanker's going to change direction. Surely against Cambridge. Surely.
2-0. 2-0 Blackpool.
Right, Tim, to see out the show and keep it real.
My slight concern is since I've become far more positive and started predicting wins, we don't win. So maybe I should go back to my negative forecasting in the hope that it helps us out. But no, I'm going to have to go for Blackpool win. I'm going to have to go for 2-0, like Andy.
I got it right last week, by the way.
You did? Yeah.
A first for me. If I could get Super 6 right, I'd be all right, wouldn't I?
I'm going to go for 1-0 win to Blackpool. We're just going to scrape it, so I'm going to copy Nick. So there you go. Right, Nick, we're on 106. Nearly made the cut. We're getting better, aren't we?
The closest we've been to an hour. With my messages in the private chat.
Yeah. Wrap it up, you wankers, was the last one. No, it wasn't really. Right, thanks for your company, gents. Great chat as always. Do like and subscribe for watching on YouTube and all those episodes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for downloading. Up the pool. Come on,
Up the pool.
Come on. Up the pool.
Been involved in 2. Can he make 3? Not on this occasion. Well taken by Walsh. Davis is on the far side. Ainscough coming square. That's the ball. That's a good try.